The world is finally quiet. No sirens, no shouting, no voices arguing over whose fault it was. Just the hollow tick of a clock somewhere in the distance, and the low buzz of my own heartbeat, reminding me I'm still here. I lie on a floor that smells of dust and rust, staring at a ceiling, spider-webbed with cracks that weren't there yesterday. My ribs ache when I breathe, my knuckles bleed when I flex, and my pride, well, that's unrecognizable rubble scattered across the room. Don't mistake this for a plea. I'm not auditioning for pity or sympathy. I'm reporting from the scene of the crash, flashlight in hand, cataloging the wreckage with clinical precision. Because this story isn't about the fall, it's about the architecture I'll raise from the debris. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. The moment gravity finished its punishment, I rolled onto my back and listened to the silence pressing in from all sides. Pain clanged in my bones like loose metal, but I refused to let it speak first. Instead, I breathed, slow, steady, insubordinate breaths, then sat up to examine the crater I'd carved into my own life. The inventory was ruthless. Projects half done, habits half dead, relationships wilted by neglect, a reputation turned to ash. I traced every fracture with a fingertip, memorizing its shape. Failure wasn't some abstract storm that ripped through my world. It was a set of coordinates, a map of complacency I'd drawn myself. The setback didn't kill me. It X-rayed me, exposed fat comfort I'd padded around my talent, showed me lazy shortcuts masquerading as momentum. That knowledge sobered me more than any humiliation. Rage would have been easy, an explosion of noise, a tantrum of fists through drywall. But explosions are unpredictable, and they leave shrapnel you never find until it's poisoning you months later. I needed something colder, cleaner, a controlled demolition followed by meticulous reconstruction. So I vanished. I stripped the trophies from my shelves, boxed the certificates, unplugged every screen that fed me applause. My new gym was a grimy warehouse, lit by flickering bulbs that hummed like hornets. No mirrors, no curated playlists, no "you got this" slogans peeling off the walls. Just iron, chalk, and air so cold, every inhale tasted like metal. I lifted there in the half-light before dawn, the clang of plates, a private metronome, measuring my rebirth. Every rep rewrote a weakness. Every set stapled discipline where ego used to stand. When the weights rested, the books opened. I traded highlight reels for textbooks, viral clips for deep dives, systems theory, biomechanics, stoic philosophy, war strategy. I dog-eared pages and scribbled margins until the ink stained my fingertips, darker than the calluses splitting open on the barbell. Knowledge became weight. Each concept, another plate I racked onto my mind. I refused hype. I refused witnesses. Friends asked where I'd gone. I answered with silence. Social feeds wondered why I'd vanished. I offered them a blank space to project their own stories. There were no progress photos, no rise and grind captions. The only metrics that mattered glowed in the dark of my notebook. Heart rate splits, study hours, kilograms moved. Quiet numbers marching upward with the relentlessness of a tide. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into brutal seasons. Winter iced the warehouse floor. Spring dripped rain through the cracked skylight. Summer turned the iron scorching. I kept lifting, kept reading, kept writing code in the lonely after hours to rebuild the professional engine I'd once driven recklessly over a cliff. If a distraction knocked, I barred the door. If comfort whispered, I throttled it with a new benchmark. That regimen reshaped more than muscle. It carved neurology. My brain rewired around precision. Wake at 4:45. Meditate 4 minutes. Drink 40-degree water. Log yesterday's metrics. Program today's protocol. By sunrise, I'd already stacked mini victories, high enough to eclipse yesterday's tallest excuse. The schedule was brutal because life is brutal. I chose to practice hardship under my own roof before the world forced it on me again. Slowly, I felt the pivot, an almost audible click, as obsession slipped its leash and discipline took the helm. Obsession is noisy, frantic, spectacular. Discipline is silent and surgical. Obsession sprints, discipline marches, with bayonet affixed and eyes narrowed toward an inevitable horizon. I locked into that march, bulletproofing each stride with purpose. The comeback wasn't a montage of fireworks and pyrotechnic high fives. It was the soft scrape of a pen scoring goals onto paper at 3 a.m. The muted hiss of protein powder dissolving in water. The quiet thunk of a phone hitting airplane mode before deep work. It was blood, mine, seeping into chalk lines, sweat soaking printouts until the ink bled like war paint. Pages torn from planners, edges curled with repetition. No viral anthem can capture that cadence. Only the heartbeat can, and even it had learned to drum quieter, more lethal. Results arrived first, as whispers, the way dawn creeps under the door before slamming light across the room. A personal record shattered with no spotter watching. A line of code executing perfectly after 50 silent refactors. A chance meeting where someone who'd written me off stumbled over their own apology. I didn't celebrate. I annotated, analyzed, adjusted. Each win merely confirmed that the protocol was working and therefore needed to be tightened, sharpened, iterated again. My standards rose like drawbridges. If a habit didn't fortify the mission, it drowned in the moat. Conversations trimmed themselves to purpose, or they never left drafts. Relationships recalibrated, either aligning with the vector of my reconstruction or slipping away with a mutual nod. My circle condensed into a diamond, small, unbreakable clarity. The more I built, the less I broadcast. I discovered power in scarcity, how silence starves critics and confounds gossips. The world loves a redemption story it can cheer for, but this wasn't for the world. This was for the architecture, the blueprint that demanded I lay every brick myself so I'd never forget the weight. Precision birthed violence, not chaos, but violence of intent. Every action cut through uncertainty like a scalpel. Workouts programmed to the gram, study sprints timed to the second, strategic outreach emails, drafted, redlined, executed exactly when data said the open rate spiked. My movements became letters in an alphabet of domination, each stroke sharp enough to draw blood if a hater leaned too close. And they did lean close. Rumors resurfaced about the quiet one, training in the dark. Former allies poked around the edges of my discipline, curious if the old weaknesses still bled. I welcomed their doubt. It was free resistance, extra load on the bar. The heavier their skepticism, the stronger my pull. Then came the first real test, a high-stakes project pitched to a room that had once ejected me for daring to stumble. I walked in, wearing the calm of a man who'd rehearsed catastrophe and carved victory from its bones. My slides were minimal, my data lethal. Questions ricocheted. I caught them with steady hands. When the final nod came, I felt nothing explode inside, just the clean click of another plate sliding home on the barbell of my comeback. Contracts signed, muscles hardened, bank accounts revived, but external rewards were footnotes. The headline was internal. I was no longer the man who fell. That man's DNA was melted down and reforged into a weapon with a single directive: never permit softness to rot the core again. You want fireworks? Buy tickets elsewhere. My show runs in the dark. A lone figure chalking palms at 5 a.m. A cursor blinking on line 3128 of a codebase refactored for elegance. A notebook page headed Day 211, Tighten Screw 43. That's where comebacks are born, not in arenas but in crucibles. Now the silence has a different weight. It's not the hush of defeat. It's the calm before calculated domination. I stand in the same room where I once collapsed, but the air bends differently around me, denser, sharper, thrumming with stored momentum. The cracks in the ceiling are still there, yet they look like roadmaps charting everywhere. I refuse to fall again. So, if you're listening for a confession of weakness, close the book. That chapter burned with the old blueprints. I'm not here to lament. I'm here to issue a bulletin written in muscle fiber and neural upgrades. I have rebuilt. I have rearmed. I have realigned every cell to attack true north. And I am not finished. Remember this fact the next time you yawn at my silence or shrug at my disappearance. Memory is fragile, but scars are permanent. I've etched mine into every rep, every paragraph, every calculated breath. Let me make it crystal. You thought I was done. That was your first mistake. You gave me something to prove, and now I'm coming back with something you'll never recover from. This script isn't reactive, it's tactical. It's the mission report of a version of me forged inside the setback's furnace, cold, exact, and irreversible. If you're smart, you'll step back. If you're not, you'll learn why my comeback was engineered, not celebrated. Why the quiet hum in the dark is sometimes the deadliest sound you'll ever ignore.